Well, now, stop acting rich. That thing is actually hurting your pocket. You're losing your money away. You think you're impressing anybody, nobody cares. You know, in this world that you're living in, a lot of things are actually disturbing people's head. Nobody even noticing actually out there. Nobody is out there to congratulate you. You're only hurting your pocket and you're gonna struggle financially. All right? Instead of just acting rich, this is what I want you to do. And by the way, if you dare watch this video, even if it's just the 3/4 of it, it doesn't have to be like the end of it. You're going to grab something that probably you didn't know. All right? And I'm going to show you some of the psychology when it comes to money that most of the people do not understand. And by the way, if you're watching this video for the first time and you've seen this face for the first time, my name is Joseph, talk about money, investment, and anything related to exactly that. And by the way, I usually post a video each and every day. So if you don't want to miss any of my good videos, this is what you do. Oh, and by the way, it doesn't cost you anything. Down below there is a small button written subscribe. Hit that magical button, like the video. That's like telling me, hey, Joseph, thank you for what you're doing. All right? Let's get to the business, okay? Now, point number one that you're supposed to understand, stop acting rich. You know what? Acting rich. See, if you were to define the word act is to, obviously, is to pretend, okay? Is to pretend. And to pretend is to mean you really do not, or you're really not rich. You know, that it means that you're really stretching yourself to actually be perceived or live that life that, you know, portrays sort of a richness or portrays that you have some money and all those kind of things. For example, I know these things are not due for you, especially in this era that all the social medias are out there and people are really struggling to prove to others that they're doing better than others. That's a reality, you know, especially these celebrities you guys usually follow out there. They live in a fake life, most of them. And then when they portray those kind of things, then you feel like, hey, it's like you're missing out. Like, hey, you're the unfortunate one and all those kind of things. Then you tend to go out there and compete with them. Okay, fine. Let's say that's a class one. Class two is this kind of an individual. You live in a particular suburb, and then you see maybe your friend or maybe say your neighbor has actually gone out there and bought a car, and you really don't want to be left behind, and then you end up buying your car, but you do not know the principles behind them buying a car. You don't even know. You don't even know whether they are financially literate. You don't even know whether they are financially stable. You don't even know whether they have bought or maybe they have sold a property they had in some sort of an inheritance back there. I mean, sometimes it's always good to understand, hey, this life is like an exam. We all have different questions. So if you just copy an answer from one individual and truncate it to your place, then doesn't apply. That's a reality. See, we are over 8 billion of us. We have 8 billion different challenges and missions and visions. That's for sure. Now, what I've seen actually, especially with these young people, is that you get employed today, you have your salary of say like 80,000. That's quite lucky in Kenya if you earn that amount of money. So if you earn your salary of maybe let's say 80,000, and by the way, I know there's somebody who have seen me writing 80,000. You're like, hey, there's an individual who's earning that amount of money. Hey, come on. Am I not able to write 80,000, okay? Now, if you earn this amount of money in Kenya, obviously, you're regarded as one of the people who earn quite a good of salary, all right? Okay, now, get this amount of money and you are young. And then there you are, you're paying a lifestyle. Maybe you're paying a house rent of 30,000, you know, 30K. And you're just single, you barely got employed. But two, you get yourself a car loan that you're actually servicing 25,000 at the end of the month. I'm giving you a real thing. I actually receive calls from different people. Oh, and by the way, if you'd like to call me, my number is always on the description of this specific video. Now, you're paying, this is car loan. This is your rent, okay? This is your car loan. Car loan. And remember one thing, there is nothing you getting a car. But now, let's look the function of this car, just to transport yourself. Okay, fine, justify it that you're saving some money. Hey, I just love a car. I was never brought up in a life where I have a car. Fine, this car is actually a liability. This is actually that amount of money that you pay at the end of the month to service that car. And guess what happened? This car does not work or does not, you ought to have a fuel, or we call it gas, whatever the thing you guys call it out there. Probably you realize that the guy is surviving on another 15K on gas or gasoline or something of so. We are just doing some math because this guy is actually making some money as he thinks or she thinks. Then you end up having some sort of a food, maybe a budget of let's say 15,000 or let's just say 10,000. Okay, and then some outings, drinking, and all those. By the time you realize you're actually surviving on the entire 80,000 Kenyan shillings at the end of the month. Fine, it's okay. You're proving a point to people. Hey, you're living in quite a luxurious life. By the way, if you pay 30,000 in Kenya for your rent, maybe say in one bedroom, then damn, you're living in quite of good, presentable places. Obviously, there are securities, all that lifestyle and all those kind of things. You're paying yourself a car. You're parking underground there. Obviously, when they build those flats, they have to come up with parking. And then you're getting yourself for the gas laying out there, and then you're paying. By the time now you have your 80,000, and then you realize you're not progressing. And then can you just imagine this? What if something happened? What if a BS happens? Because this is life, you never know. And I always tell people the most predictable thing about life is unpredictability, all right? And that's why I always tell people live in a sort of a paranoid way. Live as if anything can happen any moment. Now, just tell me, this kind of an individual, proving all the point, all right? Maybe you're hanging around in quite elegant places, in posh areas and all those kind of things. Then immediately you get fired. Or maybe say you don't get fired, but you just get sick in a way or the other. And God forbid. Now, then tell me what happens. How will you manage to actually survive this? Well, I know car, you can park it somewhere, it's okay. But how about the rent? 30,000. Where will you get it? And maybe perhaps you get sick for 2 months. Then you have yourself an arrears of 60,000. Maybe once you get back to job, and remember one thing, they're calling you. You're about to be replaced. Not that they're the best, not that you're the only one who is out there. You can get fired, and once you get fired, guess what happens? You start developing anxiety, depression. Why? Because once you get fired, there is a certain friends of people, there's certain friends of yours that you have, they get disappear. Oh, you didn't know that? Oh, let me then educate you, young man. If you lose your money in this kind of a lifestyle, guess what? You lose over 85% of, not even it, 90% of the friends that you have right now. If you want to know their life is not real and the people that you have right now who are surrounding you are not real, get fired, lose the money that you have, and then you don't fit in their cycle. Nobody will be calling you during the weekend. Nobody will actually, you see, when you have in a certain cycle, when maybe say you hang around with the people who are 100K, 120, 90, 70, probably you can even accommodate someone who is earning 60,000. So when you are in that cycle, you can borrow each other. Whenever just call you, hey, yeah, hey, how are you? Hey, you just let me like 20 G's. You get some 20 G's? Yeah, sure, get some 20 G's, because they are certain. Hey, at the end of the month, this dude has over 80 G's, so he gonna pay me. There's no problem. So the life becomes so good and easy, and then you think that they're your friends. God damn it, get fired. That's the time you realize life is not what you used to think about it. Nobody talks to you. Why? I mean, let's argue from the point of somebody has get fired and he's your friend. He doesn't have any job, and then he's borrowing you 20 G's. And then you're like, okay, fine, I have the 20 G's, but am I sure that this guy will pay back? And how will he even pay back? Because he's even fired. See, this is what I'm telling you. You guys don't live a fake life out there. Don't act rich. By the way, if you ask me, I would say act poor. I'm not saying you be poor. I say act poor. Act as if you do not have anything, but you have everything out there. That's the reality. That's the secret about life. Remember one thing, this is life. One day you're going to sacrifice. It doesn't matter when. One day you will. It's either now or later. Life has a way of doing that. And unless maybe you come from a life where you have everything, but your parents made everything, and maybe this video is not applicable for you. But if you come from a life whereby, like where we came from, hey, you have to do something by yourself. Okay, now the point is this: stop acting rich. Well, this is what you're supposed to do. Live a quite a decent life, obviously. When I say decent life, I mean like, be out there, pay. For example, if you live alone, what are you doing with 30,000 rent? Come on, even 15,000, half of this, what are you doing with it, honestly? If you just got, you just got employed. Seriously? And why are you even getting yourself a car? Just for the liability purposes. Okay, fine, you're arguing from the point of faith for transport purposes, you can beat the traffic jam and what have you. But then if you were to quantify that based on, how much you can salvage or save if you were to go the public way, then, you see, there's nothing wrong buying a car. I love cars. It's an amazing thing. I love cars, but you buy it when it's appropriate. By the way, if you tell me, hey, I get this car, I pay these 25 G's at the end of the month, and by the way, at the evening I do Uber, you're making sense. You're at least making some few coins, and then ask me, hey, by the way, you didn't know, that what I get from the Uber is actually even enough to cater for this expenses that I have to pay at the end of the month from this. It makes sense, because the car is able to pay itself, and maybe you're getting some food out of the thing. That's an investment. It's not a liability. But if you just get this, can you imagine this? You get your buy, and these guys, they don't even buy that heavy cars. They buy maybe, let's say, 1.5 million. 1.5 million car. So you're getting this 1.5 million, and maybe because you didn't have amount of money, because you are initially indisciplined. So what happens? You set aside, maybe, let's say, maybe you show up with the 500 G's, okay? And then you have a million bob that you need to pay, say maybe in 2 years' time, okay? In 2 years or maybe 3 years' time, depends on how you agree with your lender. Now, at that particular point, can you imagine this? You're taking this a whole 1.5 million with you. You're sitting on 1.5 million. You're driving the 1.5 million. Then you reach where you usually work. You park the 1.5 million under your basement, and then you go make 80,000 at the end of the month. Basically, it's like you're making like 2,000 at the end of the, not two, like three, less than 3,000, let's say like 2.5K per day. Now the point is this: but if you were to do something with this 1.5, there's nothing wrong with you getting a loan. But if you were to channel this amount of money towards an area whereby it will be generating you something, and then what is being generated from that investment, it pays its own loan. that standing that you're supposed to pay each and every month. And at the same time, you at least be able to, get some few coins out of it. So after accumulation, say after the 2 or 3 years, you manage to pay back of the entire 1.5 million, you are left with the investment, and then you're left with the entire cash flow. Then what happens? Now, if you can get this car, there's no problem. Why? Because the car will be serviced not by your salary, but the car will actually be serviced by what? The investment that you're making out there. It's so much intriguing and it's so much hurting when I see people out there struggling to survive on this, what we call the fake life, proving a point to people. Nobody's minding. And let's leave you with this point. There is something called the spotlight effect. Spotlight effect. Spotlight effect in the simple ones is like you walking in town, and then here you are, you're just walking here and there, and then you feel like, let's say maybe you have some toe pants here, and then you feel like, hey, everybody is actually watching you, and then you feel like everything is directed towards you, and they're actually noticing that exactly kind of a thing. Let me tell you one secret. This is more of a psychological thing than a real thing, okay? It is good to make sure that at least you do something, and maybe you say, okay, maybe I know maybe you may achieve something. Maybe it's your first time maybe doing a certain thing. Maybe you've never bought a fridge, you bought it for the first time. I know there is that zeal, of like showing people, hey, guess what, guys? I know it may not mean a big deal to you, but hey, I just got myself a fridge. You feel like you want to take a photo and post it out there. Yeah, I know there is that thing, okay? But sometimes just contain yourself, Just if maybe you sleep 1 or 2 times or something also, it's okay, it happens. We are human beings, we are not perfect. But I know there is that excitement that oozes from deep inside of you, all right? But now the point is this: don't live a life whereby people will actually think like, hey, you're doing some. Just be yourself. And I always advise people, do that thing that you can be able to sustain it throughout your life. There's a reality. You can be able to sustain it throughout your life. If you can comfortably wear a shoe worth maybe 1,000 bob and you're okay, it's comfortable, it's presentable, you're okay. You don't really have to prove to anybody. You don't have to show people that you're actually out there. Number two, make sure that at least that what you watch on the social media in terms of these influencers, the celebrities showing you, elegancy, showing you that they're living comfortably, showing you that they're already in heaven, showing you that they're living in this utopian dream that you always aspire in. Just, take anything that you see on social media with a pinch of salt. That would be the wisest thing that you can ever do in this life. I repeat, taking anything and everything that you see on social media with a pinch of salt. Be very cautious, be very careful. Not everything that you see on this social media are actually real, okay? Because some people are proving out the others are chasing the views and you think you're missing out and all those kind of, and this is why maybe after seeing that, and then those guys at the end of whatever they show up, they tell you, join this, do this, do this, do this, and then you end up getting into a thing that can actually even squander your money, sort of a scamming or something of sort. Be very careful. Oh my goodness, live your real life. If you do exactly that, then life will be a bit presentable to you, and you won't even develop what we call the anxieties, the stresses, and depression, and all those kind of things. Anyway, guess what, guys? That marks the end of my video, but don't forget this: at all the time, be here to watch my videos and pick that number of mine from the description. That's our business. And for now, it's a goodbye and see you in the next one.